the New 80s Revolution with Jason Nupp, a one and all show full of fun where anything can and does happen. Pickups, fan mail, toy reviews, camping with the New 80s Revolution Jr. Whatever the heck else does not fit into a specific category, Jason covers it right here, folks. And now, the host of the New 80s Revolution, Jason Nupp.
What's up, guys? Jason up in New Age Revolution down here in the cave for another top 5 video. That's right, where we talk about 5 of my favorite whatevers from the 80s, from the 90s, from today, you know, whatever. No, doesn't necessarily have to be a vintage top 5, just my top 5. And tonight, we're going to do a much requested top 5. Tonight we're going to talk about my top 5 Nintendo games. My top 5 NES, Nintendo Entertainment System games of all time. Now, I'm not a gamer. I am not much of a gamer. I am horrible at most games. My 9-year-old is excellent. He is outstanding at games. He beat like his first game probably at age 5. He beat like a Donkey Kong Country for Wii, I think, or a Mario game for Wii. Just beat it. Yeah, no problem. Beat it. And then we got him the Switch, and he was beating the Mario games on the Switch, and so he's good. He's got talent. I have no talent. I have zero talent with video games. But you know, the Nintendo. You know, the Nintendo is my favorite system, I guess, just for nostalgia's sake. Nostalgia's sake. I don't think it's my favorite video game console of all time outside of nostalgia. I preferred the Sega Genesis a lot more. I guess I don't know. I'm such a non-gamer that even as a kid I would only be interested in sports games because I was so bad at the other games. So like Sega Genesis World Series Baseball was like my favorite game for Sega Genesis, and all the Maddens and the NBA, the Lakers versus Celtics. Like, you know, my friends and I would do all the tournaments, and so my video game playing was a lot of sports games. Got a Nintendo in probably 86. Yeah, I'd really have to, maybe even 87. Late. We got it late. I would almost say 87. We got the Nintendo. I had Atari as a kid. I had Atari from age maybe 6. I had surgery as a 6-year-old in Boston, and as I got off the plane and was walking through the airport, my grandparents were coming to get us, to pick us up, and they had an Atari in their hands. So I got an Atari for having surgery, and you know, I played it. You know, I was not a fanatic of any kind, and we had the Atari all the way up until like 87 or 88 when we got the Nintendo. And I remember my dad bought it for us at his house. My parents were divorced, and my dad got us the Nintendo and insisted that it stay at his house, which was torture because we were there like every weekend or every other weekend. So we never got to play it. And I remember he got it for us, and he got us. He got us the Nintendo, and I think Ghosts and Goblins. I think like that's early memory. And you know, back then you were either a gamer back then or you weren't. And if you weren't, you would play for a little while, and then you would go do other stuff. And that was more my speed. I definitely knew kids who would sit for hours and just beat games. I have never been a game beater. I am not. I have beaten a handful of games, very small handful of games, to this day. I can't do it. I cannot beat games. So it was an accessory. The Nintendo was an accessory in my life. Video games have always been a fringe accessory, never a main thing. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about my top 5 Nintendo games, and no particular order indeed. They are just the 5 that my go-to games and the games I enjoy playing. Number 5, we're going to go with the old standby. Because it's the first Nintendo game I ever played. Why is it the first Nintendo game I ever played? Well, because it's the game that came with the system. Super Mario Brothers, we are going to say, is one of my top 5 favorite games. Now you guys are going, are you kidding me? Super Mario 1? Yeah, because I'm not a gamer. And so, it's a favorite because it was the first game that I played, and that was, Ghosts and Goblins was hard. So if, you'd play that for like 10 minutes, and then you'd go back to Mario. And I just remember fondly my sisters and I playing and being really excited about each board. Like, wow, we're on 3-1 or 3-2. This is incredible. Because that's as far as I was getting back then, You didn't know any of the secrets. You didn't know the warp zones. You passed by every, 1-up and all the secrets. You didn't know that. So you played. And it, it's still a game that I can goof around with today. In fact, during the COVID infestation of January of this year, I sat down here, isolated in the cave, and beat Super Mario again. Yeah, I beat it again. That's right, very proud. And you would think that it would be like, oh, quick, we can do that in our sleep. No, it took me the 3 days that I was down here to finally catch a groove and beat Mario 1. And the only time I did it was when I accidentally, board, I don't know, board 6-1 or 6-2 or something, that turtle, when you can jump on the turtle shell and hit it infinite amount of times and just get 100 extra lives. That was something that I mastered as a kid and then absolutely forgot how to do it later in life. But totally accidentally, I did it during the COVID playthrough and got 75 lives. So I was able to beat Mario 1. But that is a number I don't know, whatever, top 5. That's the first of the top 5. Second is Double Dragon. Double Dragon was one of the first games that I was really into, and still very, very into today. Double Dragon was an arcade game that I loved the heck out of as I would hit up the St. Pius Elementary School Bowling League and play at the bowling alley. And more importantly than the 2 games of bowling was the 6 or 7 minutes of Double Dragon before the bus came to get us. And I loved it in the arcade, and then boom, it's on the Nintendo. And that was an absolute must-have game for me. And I only recently beat it. I beat it in 2016 or so. In fact, I've got a little list that I all the Nintendo games on the shelf. I shoved a little list in there of all the games that I've beaten. Every game I've beaten, with the exception of Mario 1, was done in adulthood. And there's 5. And 2 of them are on my top 5 list tonight. So yeah, beat Double Dragon a few years ago, and it's awesome. I love it. I love Double Dragon. Double Dragon 2 is really good. Double Dragon 3 is fun, but the problems are you die a lot quicker in those games. So beating those games is a real accomplishment. Double Dragon 2 is actually really good, except everything is reverse. Like the punch, you punch backwards or you kick back. All the controls are reverse. It's weird. But I love Double Dragon. Loved it. And the Sega Master System, prior to Genesis, the Master System actually has the Double Dragon arcade port, if you will. It's the arcade game brought over to the Master System. The Nintendo game was different. There was no two-player mode. It was just different than the arcade. But the Master System game is the arcade game. It's just really, really slow. So when I had a Master System a while ago, I got Double Dragon, and I was like, wow, we're going to play the arcade version. Really slow. Really, really slow. I could get, when that 1UP arcade company started coming out, I bought, a few cabinets, and I know a couple of my friends on here are big into those. I never, video games just aren't my thing. So, I wouldn't want to get an arcade of Double Dragon, because I think I would play it for nostalgia's sake for a little while, and then it would just sit there, and I wouldn't play it. But nonetheless, I kind of feel like I'm crapping on video games in this video. I'm not. I'm not. I love them. Just not. I like them. I'm just not in love. I love them, but I'm not in love with them. You know what I mean? I love them, but I'm not in love with them. Double Dragon. Number 3, let's say Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is a top 5 game of mine. That is a game that I could say I'm kind of in love. I'm kind of in love with Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. The conversations at school that we would have about this game, the gift of Nintendo Power, the Mike Tyson's Punch-Out issue of Nintendo Power changed our 6th grade lives, because it taught you how to beat King Hippo, right? Nintendo Power taught you how to beat King Hippo. And after that, you were on to a whole nother world. Because, remember, different time, no playthroughs on YouTube, no cheats. You're finding out about Mike Tyson's Punch-Out if you get an issue of the Nintendo Power magazine that's featuring that game. Otherwise, you're either discovering this stuff by accident or you're not discovering it. So if you didn't know how to beat King Hippo, you weren't beating him. I don't know any kids that just figured it out on their own, how to beat King Hippo. And so once that is done, then you take on a whole new world of challengers that you never got to. But yeah, I was stuck on King Hippo for like 6 months. Just stopped playing it, And then the Nintendo Power issue came out, and you're like, oh, okay. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is the other game, the second game on this list that I beat in adulthood. In fact, if you scroll back through the channel archives, I filmed it for you. I've got long-haired me beating Mike Tyson by decision, unfortunately. I have beat him by both. I've beat him by TKO, and I've beaten him by decision. And you got to be in a zone. You got to be in the groove to beat Mike Tyson. First of all, the only way you're going to ever do it is if you watch other people beat him and you learn the timing of all of his punches. And once you do that, and you're just in the right place in your head, right? You got maybe a couple of cocktails in you, and you're just dodging at the right time and dodging and dodging and dodging. That's the only way you're going to do it. It's awesome. Actually, getting to Mike Tyson is harder than beating Mike Tyson. So I just use the code, of course, the cheat code, the famous cheat code. And Yeah, that was a huge accomplishment. I think bigger than beating Double Dragon was beating Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, because that was an unbeatable game. Like, kids in 6th grade, you weren't beating Mike Tyson. You weren't even getting to him. So that's an accomplishment as a 40-year-old. Big time accomplishment to beat Iron Mike. And the only way you're beating him is by TKO or decision. And decision, I learned later in life that you need 5,000 points to get the decision in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. So I was just watching the points, and so go check the video out. It's on the tube. It's way back. Go back into the archives and watch me beat Mike Tyson. Another one is Bases Loaded. Bases Loaded, the baseball game. I told you that the majority of my gameplay was sports games. Double Dribble, Madden football. I told you for Sega. But Bases Loaded. Bases Loaded was for 2 reasons. One, my best pal at the time was an even bigger baseball fan than me, and we would play that game together. We would verse each other all the time, and it was such a step up from the NES baseball. And we had, with Atari, you had a game called Real Sports Baseball, which was horrible, but good for the Atari. And then you had a very, very poor baseball game where you could knock the guy's, I don't know, there was like this weird glitch in the Atari game where you could knock the guy's hat off and then the game would freeze. And then Nintendo came out with MLB Baseball, which was terrible, and RBI Baseball, which was slightly less terrible, starting to get good. But then Bases Loaded came out, and it was like a real arcade style, great graphics for the time baseball game. So playing it with my best pal was a treat. And the other reason I love it so much was it was the first ever game that I actually got like statistically involved with, right? I would get a notebook and I would write down my team, because the game didn't keep wins and losses, and it certainly didn't keep statistics. So I would design like a 32 game season where I would keep stats for all my players. And I would have batting averages and RBIs and win-loss and home runs and all that stuff for my team only. And I would keep them in a notebook and just, play and have a blast. And, because that was so much fun back then to do that. And so Bases Loaded was the first game that I got to do that stuff with, and I loved it. And then I got really excited later on when games would start to keep the stats for you. I think, I could be wrong, but I think Tony La Russa Baseball was the first one for Sega to keep stats. I know World Series Baseball kept stats, and then like, I don't know, Triple Play for Sega. There were, there was a period in time when games wouldn't, keep your stats. And that's, I think today, I love baseball games for video games. I love baseball video games. And now I'm playing, MLB The Show, and it's just wonderful, and I love it, and, it's fun. But Bases Loaded started it all. The fifth and final favorite game, of course, it's pro wrestling. Yes, pro wrestling. Why? Well, the reason why is because everything pro wrestling was important in my life back then. And this game very, very much resembled Mat Mania for the arcades, which was, my favorite arcade game. It very, very much looked like Mat Mania. And even though it wasn't licensed and didn't have, the names that we recognized, it was probably the best wrestling game until, Nintendo 64, probably, with the NWO, WCW games. It was probably the best. I mean, it looked like wrestling. You could do wrestling moves, It was certainly a world apart from the Atari Pro Wrestling game, which was just, horrible little pixels dancing around. It was a million times better than WWF WrestleMania for Nintendo. And it was awesome. And I haven't beat it. I haven't beat it to this day. I can get pretty far. I can win. I think I can win the title and then start defending the title. And then once you defend the title 10 times, I think you have to fight the champion, like the main guy. Like, it's not King Slender. Great Puma. Great Puma is the boss in pro wrestling. Never even been in the ring with him. Never even gotten to him. But, still a fun game. Repetitive tune over and over again in your head. Pro wrestling. That's the top 5. If you guys want me to play any of these top 5 games, let me know. Maybe we can try to beat pro wrestling or something together, and I'll do it very primitively. I mean, I'll set the camera up over my shoulder, and this will be what you see. Me do that. I'm not playing on a Nintendo. I am playing on a Retron 2, right here. That takes NES controllers. You can hook up your NES controller to the Retron 2. So far, it is working perfectly. I'm fine with that. I give up on trying to have a Nintendo actually work. I'm done replacing the pin connectors and all. I'm done with that. And the Retron has done its job. And so, again, if you want to see me play any of these top 5 games, let me know, and we'll go for it. Maybe we can try to beat Mike Tyson again. Maybe we can finally beat Great Puma in pro wrestling. Put it out there if you want me to do it. That's top 5 NES games. We'll be back with another and another and another sometime soon. Until then, good night now.